My beloved, do you think it's an accident that you're hearing my voice right now? No. Heaven planned this moment long before you took your first breath. Here on Holy Voices, we share the whispers of eternity, the messages that change hearts and awaken destinies. If your soul is ready, stay with me, because what you're about to hear might be the very word your spirit has been waiting for. Your like spreads hope. Your comment builds community. Your subscription takes us closer to 40,000 voices. Because your stolen inheritance is currently being returned to you, chosen ones, you are the detective that everyone in town fears. And as the largest spiritual theft in universal history is finally revealed by the one individual with the investigative skills necessary to solve the case, cosmic alarms are blaring throughout all dimensions. The shadow agents who planned your methodical eviction are currently reeling in sheer panic as your detective consciousness has awoken and started gathering information that will bring down their entire criminal enterprise. Every misconception about why your existence hasn't mirrored your actual spiritual authority will be dispelled by the startling realization about downloading into your awareness. In reality, you were carrying out the most advanced spiritual research ever carried out by a chosen soul while you battled through what seemed to be sporadic calamities. Collecting evidence that forces that saw your detective talent before you did and spent decades building intricate prisons to keep your investigative awakening in check had taken over your entire life. You're going to learn that every financial hardship, treachery, and closed door was a planned step in the most complex scheme to steal inheritance ever tried against the holy lineage. And as your conscious mind grappled with the enormity of what was occurring, your superhuman investigative skills were recording proof of this cosmic crime. Similar to a professional investigator traversing a crime scene while everyone else witnesses haphazard mayhem. Unconsciously, you've been compiling spiritual proof that transcends the realm of regular perception. Establishing your reputation as the detective who cracked the unsolvable riddle while constructing the case that would return everything that was taken from your birthright. Electrical issues were not the cause of the flickering street lights that appeared every time you passed beneath them. In your presence, illumination systems struggled to sustain steady power output after detecting your heightened spiritual frequency. Water distribution networks identified your energetic signature and initiated conservation techniques to restrict your access to purifying resources. Therefore, the automatic faucets in public restrooms that refused to activate despite your hand placement was not a sensor error. It wasn't mechanical issues that caused the escalators to abruptly stop moving when you walked onto them. Systems of vertical transit were instructed to erect physical barriers to prevent you from reaching locations where evidence could be found. There was no maintenance problem with the revolving doors that jammed during your passage. To prevent you from entering areas with witnesses or documents, building access restrictions and resistance mechanisms were triggered. Public restroom hand dryers that turned off right away after being turned on weren't energy-saving devices. You were unable to reach the purifying frequencies that would improve your investigating clarity because of air circulation systems. Paper towel dispensers that only produced one sheet even after several pulls weren't made with conservation in mind. Sanitation supply networks severely underestimated one important issue while restricting your access to instruments that could be utilized for evidence preservation. When the biggest threat to your destiny arises, your ancient detective DNA activates. And like a spiritual atomic bomb that no force in the cosmos can stop or reject, your argument is going to blow up into reality. Every breakup in your life has been planned to divert your attention from tracking down the source of your stolen legacy. To keep you from learning that you have been the victim of the most advanced identity theft scheme ever attempted against a chosen soul, they signed your name on documents while giggling behind closed doors, took over spaces intended for your growth while reveling in your apparent ignorance, and caused chaos in your personal life. The banks that turned down your applications even though you were perfectly qualified weren't operating according to the rules. When your spiritual signature was detected as a danger to their false empire, they were carrying out commands from shadow networks. Business decisions weren't being made by the companies that passed you over for jobs for which you were more qualified. They were working together to keep you in a tight financial situation. Every accidental delay in your life had a purpose in their larger scheme, even while your pilfered assets produced profits in their unauthorized accounts. The investments that failed against all reasonable expectations, the lease applications that inexplicably halted, and the prospects that vanished despite initial enthusiasm. These were no haphazard accidents. They were strategic moves intended to deplete your resources and take away your ability to look at your actual situation on your own. Your oppressors think their plans will always be shrouded in darkness, but their conceit has prevented them from seeing one important fact. They could never understand the otherworldly detective skills you possess. The spiritual inquiry abilities ingrained in your divine DNA were beyond their limited understanding. They were too short-sighted to see the cosmic investigator in human form strolling among them. You were acquiring spiritual X-ray vision that can see through the thickest deceptions, while they believed you were breaking. Your divine GPS was turning on to determine the precise location of your stolen blessings while they thought you were lost. They believed you were oblivious to their plots, but your third eye was revealing facts they were frantically trying to hide. Just as they believed you were at your lowest, your spiritual senses were improving. Wishful fantasies were not the recurrent nightmares in which you passed through homes with your name etched into the marble foundations. They accessed real property records that were kept in dimensional archives where your actual ownership paperwork were intact, acting as your detective awareness. The mental imagery of bank vaults opening to expose accounts bearing your real signature wasn't meant to alleviate financial stress. They were missions of spiritual reconnaissance that unearthed secret resources amassed by your rightful heritage. Even though you are undoubtedly reaping the benefits of immense wealth, this is about more than just money or property. This is about using your own spiritual intelligence to solve the biggest theft ever perpetrated against your destiny. Conspiracies that would have remained hidden forever if someone else had been the target have been exposed by you. Investigative skills specifically designed to unravel this particular riddle are encoded in your distinct spiritual fingerprint. Your detective abilities were created by the cosmic architects specifically for this circumstance. Only this exact frequency of injustice activated the special investigation protocols implanted in your DNA by universal intelligence. The people who stole your birthright while posing as you never recognized who was confronting them. The spiritual detective with cosmic inquiry skills pulsing through your blood was hidden by your physical form. The parking meters that were breaking down while you were around weren't just sporadic mechanical issues. Your high energy frequency interferes with equipment that is meant to take resources from your environment. The elevators that inexplicably skipped your floor in spite of obvious button presses weren't broken. Instead, building systems that were set up to restrict your access identified your spiritual signature as a risk to unapproved operations. Now watch as your discoveries caused the house of falsehood to crumble. It wasn't luck or chance guessing when the pieces began to fit together. The exact moment your extraordinary investigative abilities were programmed to emerge, they did. Your divine detective system working beyond physical bounds is represented by your ability to discern anything essentially amiss in spite of complex cover-ups. It wasn't sensor issues that caused the automated doors to pause before opening while you were there. When security systems sensed your curiosity, they tried to prevent you from entering locations where evidence may be found. During your transactions, the ATMs that showed odd messages weren't caused by software bugs. Banking networks were unable to reconcile artificially imposed constraints with your genuine financial signature. It wasn't just any sleep experience that led to those dreams that revealed secret information. While your conscious mind slept, your spiritual surveillance software kept running. Every intuition, intuitive prompt, and fortuitous finding reflects advanced spiritual research techniques. Your detective effort is supported by cosmic intelligence in every seemingly chance encounter that filled in the gaps. There were no connectivity problems with the Wi-Fi networks that lost connection if you looked for a certain topic. Interference procedures were triggered by digital monitoring systems to stop your research from accessing important online evidence. Algorithm errors were not the cause of the search results that, despite exact searches, produced irrelevant information. Programs that suppressed information took your investigation away from supporting documentation for your argument. Your life is filled with synchronicity that goes beyond random happenstance. Divine breadcrumbs are cosmic affirmations of your research work. Every significant link is a sign from global intelligence that points you in the direction of the next insight. These spiritual markers show up just when they're needed, validating the correctness of your investigating direction and shedding light on the next phase of your detective adventure. You have access to investigative methods that have been refined over many generations of your spiritual heritage thanks to the activation of ancestral memory codes. Through you, your ancestors, skilled individuals who have studied similar cosmic cases, now contribute their knowledge to your research. Your $100 gift through Super Thanks is not just support, it's prophecy. You are speaking into your own future harvest. When you need breakthroughs that appear to come out of nowhere but truly originate from everywhere, their cumulative wisdom floods your mind. The attorneys who asserted that your cases could not be proven were not providing truthful legal counsel. Their purpose as gatekeepers was to deter you from seeking justice. Your interests were not being safeguarded by the financial advisors who advised you against making certain investments. They were keeping you from finding accounts that were being used to launder your stolen wealth through transactions that looked authentic. In reality, all of the documents you asked for but were inexplicably unable to locate were moved to safe locations where your real records are kept as proof in cosmic courts. The bureaucrats who claimed your documentation was inadequate weren't operating according to protocol. They were carrying out particular procedures meant to stall your inquiry. The criminals were never aware that they were leaving energetic proof everywhere, even as more evidence was being methodically erased. With every act of deception, karmic fingerprints that are only apparent to those who possess your special spiritual sight collected. You could identify and track the origin of the ripples in the quantum field caused by each fake signature. Spiritual forensics at its most sophisticated level is demonstrated by your ability to detect these minute disruptions in the global fabric. It wasn't technological issues that caused your phone calls to drop during important conversations. They were intentional disruptions intended to keep you from speaking with witnesses who could support your inquiry. There were no technical issues with the emails that vanished from your fragrance folder. They demonstrated advanced monitoring techniques that tracked your communications and blocked messages that could strengthen your case. The insurance policies that were missing from the company's databases weren't misplaced documents. Because they included beneficiary information that would reveal the full extent of your inheritance, they were purposefully stored in limited access systems. In reality, the purportedly non-existent property deeds were kept in specialized vaults where genuine records are awaiting your investigative work to find the appropriate jurisdictional keys. It was more than just theft of your inheritance. They thought the frequency locks were impregnable, and it was concealed behind dimensional barriers. The vibrating vaults held the keys to your dominion, and the halls intended for your feet were traversed by impostors. While criminals used the money you accumulated for your divine purpose, your wealth was concealed with active camouflage. However, not a single crucial variable was ever computed. Dimensions are transparent. Veils that block conventional perception are broken by your spiritual vision. Trails that are imperceptible to the human eye are followed by your intuitive tracking. Frequency patterns created especially to conceal your wealth are decoded by your investigative senses. Most people would never notice the evidence that your spiritual forensic skills can retrieve from etheric signals. Your financial insignificance was not demonstrated by your tax records, which revealed no evidence of your real income. They were proof of deliberate repression intended to conceal the enormous wealth streams that legitimately passed through your name. Your actual financial capacity was not accurately assessed by the credit reports that showed fictitious constraints. They were fake documents designed to give the impression that you had nothing of value to look at. Now, the divine hand responds to your investigative efforts, not as the creator but as the upholder of the case you developed by spiritual inquiry. Cosmic powers come to your aid as backup arrives after the lead investigator cracks the case because you used your own superhuman detective abilities to solve this mystery. Interdimensional displays now materialize into concrete proof, bringing the spiritual evidence you amassed across several planes to life. From the start, the Universal Tribunal has been keeping an eye on your case. They have observed you carefully gathering evidence that others were unable to perceive. Evidence that is concurrently present on several different grounds of reality. Your spiritual detective work has made it possible for this tribunal, which is made up of enlightened beings who uphold cosmic order, to impose the divine verdict. Your investigation has immediate repercussions for those who planned your eviction, which no amount of evasion can avoid. Because you followed spiritual breadcrumbs to their concealed locations in both physical filing cabinets and etheric record halls, documents they fabricated now show their meddling. Because you trusted your gut about where to look and which experts to consult across numerous dimensions of reality, the fake signatures they use now reveal their deception. Because your energy field forces truth when you enter a room, producing a spiritual deposition atmosphere that no false testimony can survive, the witnesses they paid now admit the whole scope of the conspiracy. Because of your investigative efforts, accounts that they previously believed were untraceable now leave luminous trails that go straight to their doorsteps. You have persevered through adversity that was intended to shatter you, and as a result, you have developed into a skilled spiritual investigator. Despite the discouragement of those who were unable to see what you saw, you followed every hint. You followed every intuition you had despite being told to let it go. When there was no tangible proof, you were able to discern every piece of evidence spiritually. All of this is evidence of your inquisitive genius and has been recorded in the cosmic record. Your abilities in spiritual inquiry have put together a case that is so strong that not even the most cunning cosmic criminals can avoid its conclusions or challenge its rulings in any multiverse court. In the universal justice system, your detective approach has set new standards that will direct investigations for future spiritual generations. In spiritual combat, what seems like a simple return of property and money is actually your win. The majority of people never notice bank accounts, investment portfolios, insurance policies, or real estate documents. Enemies attempted to use interdimensional identity theft to seize these purely physical expressions of spiritual birthright. You used superhuman investigative skills that transcend space-time limitations to track them down across realities that don't even have names in human language and recover what is rightfully yours. Your detective work was successful. Obstacles that most people never even notice. Authorized access to records that are often kept hidden from public view is granted by your spiritual search warrant. As your proof compels realization in several dimensions, the cosmic scales tipped sharply. Watch as people who disregarded your intuitive understanding and made fun of your spiritual skills are exposed by evidence you found when they believed all traces had been removed. As the case you constructed exposes their misdeeds in indisputable detail, notice how individuals who accused you of being mentally unwell for chasing fictitious conspiracies now behave in a panic. When you asked, the real estate brokers who said there were no properties available weren't just keeping track of inventories. They were displaying assets that were specifically marked as belonging to you to other members of the inheritance theft network while hiding them from you. The appraisers weren't adhering to market norms when they gave you suspiciously low values for the houses you tried to buy. To keep you from obtaining assets that were legally yours, they were purposefully depressing prices. Observe how your investigative work sets off universal justice procedures designed to precisely balance all equations, causing those who kept you in cycles of poverty to now suffer economic ruin. As your detective work materializes in front of witnesses, the same people who once called you insane now find it difficult to explain the inexplicable. The accountants weren't exhibiting mathematical limits when they said that some computations couldn't be done. They were deliberately hiding computer data that would show the full extent of the fortune amassed in your name. Legal interests were not being protected by the trustees who denied you access to inherited assets while claiming fiduciary responsibility. They were taking part in the organized theft of assets entrusted to your care. Your oppressors are aware that they are about to be exposed, but they do not have the spiritual knowledge to express their increasing fear. They sense walls closing in, but they are unaware that it is the culmination of years of painstaking evidence collection. They feel like someone is watching, but they are unaware that it is your spiritual surveillance gathering the last bit of evidence before the inevitable full reveal. Your investigative efforts have revealed every shade, therefore their period of hiding is over. Since your case proves their accountability beyond all dimensional bounds, their attempts to avoid universal jurisdiction are unsuccessful. When they learn that stealing from someone with your detective skills triggers consequences that go beyond physical boundaries, the same assurance they demonstrated while methodically destroying your spiritual infrastructure turns into fear. The witnesses who had already stated that. Now that you are aware of your situation, your energy field forces you to reveal the truth, causing spontaneous memory recovery. The co-workers who were unaware of the fraudulent operations suddenly remember specifics of meetings where your dispossession was organized and carried out. False testimony is impossible to maintain in spiritual deposition circumstances created by your detective presence. The keys that you regain access to open more than just doors to actual buildings and real localities. They stand in for your investigative prowess, cracking codes your adversaries felt were unbreakable and deciphering ciphers they thought would leave you forever perplexed. The area being restored is not only in geographical coordinates with surveyed boundaries, it is also a monument to your investigative triumph, where your detective skills outwitted opponents who never expected your strategic genius. This territory was reclaimed through spiritual warfare. We are not just counting numbers, we are raising voices. Be one of the 40,000 by subscribing to Holy Voices. The storage facilities that purportedly held nothing in your name really hold collections of your real belongings that have been kept in perfect condition since the theft. When your investigative efforts lead to the restoration of repressed records, safety deposit boxes that bank officials said didn't exist appear in computer systems. The cars that were registered using false paperwork now show who really owns them. Title searches allow you to conduct your investigation. The spiritual riches is represented by the money coming back. Cosmic thieves believed they had concealed your wealth in vaults you would never find, so they took back your detective skills. Each item that comes back to you has energetic tags that identify it as having been found by your paranormal detective work. Wishful thinking isn't how this manifests. This is justice brought about by a sincere spiritual inquiry. Your commercial alliances that were broken up by falsified paperwork are now being reconstructed as the real contract emerges from hidden archives. As your investigative effort reveals the fraudulent nature of those transactions, the intellectual property rights that were transferred without your knowledge or agreement return to you. The revenues that were diverted to unapproved parties start to return to your accounts, which is where they should have been. It was more than just theft of your inheritance. It was hidden behind what they thought were impregnable frequency locks and concealed beyond spatial boundaries. However, your investigative efforts broke through every disguise, unraveled every trick, and located the hiding place of every stolen asset. Because you solved the case when all cosmic factors were perfectly aligned for optimum recovery potential, the time frame moves more quickly. The people who attempted to take your place thought they could just assume your identity and spiritual authority without anyone noticing. Stupid people. They didn't realize that they were leaving spiritual traces that only you, with your special forensic frequencies, could find. Every fabricated document vibrating at false frequencies, every manipulated witness surrounded by the characteristic atmosphere of coercion, and every fake signature bearing energy differences all left energetic proof. You were specially qualified to uncover it with your spiritual detective talents. The art collections that were taken from your homes while you were purposefully kept apart by fictitious crises are now put back on display where they belong. The family heirlooms that vanished during dubious estate settlements have been found in private collections after being unlawfully stored there. Your inquiry reveals the insurance fraud that covered up the theft of the jewelry items that disappeared during fake robberies. Hello, this is Mike, and I'm interrupting your regularly scheduled show for a brief time. We are the creators of the Astral Atom Network and the Holy Voices Inner Order. We've finished being polite. Our battle is a spiritual one. You are aware of it. We are aware of it. We are aware of it. And we are dedicated to this mission full-time. Blood from fourth-dimensional archons is what I'm craving. However, we require the ammunition. Listen, you're doing more than just helping us when you join the Inner Order. They never intended for you to have access to these special tools. Training in psychic self-defense, focused personal intelligence, and spiritual warfare techniques they scrape from the internet. We also meet in secret once a week. Selected ones exclusively on Zoom. Real Nazis, real family, and real power, no filters or filler. It's a complete victory. You obtain what you require. We are allowed to continue fighting. So instead of just watching, give this video a like and tell everyone you know about it. Join the Holy Voices Inner Order right now. Let's complete the task at hand. The description contains a link. Let's go crazy. In Realms, your position is restored. Your investigative abilities were clearly yours from the start. Your credentials restore your authority. Your research confirmed everything that was still unclear. Through mission objectives, your purpose becomes clear. Your investigative efforts were retrieved from obscure archives. You've shown that you can handle truth at its most concentrated intensity, but the deluge of facts you gathered may be too much for the average human mind to understand galactic crime patterns. When the people you've apprehended during your spiritual quest arrive, coming back with flimsy excuses and open attempts to bargain for less severe penalties, your judgment must be uncanny enough to spot manipulation masquerading as regret. Remain steadfast in the authority your investigative work has built up on several levels of life. You have proven your case beyond a reasonable doubt. Based on your results, universal justice will now be fully implemented. Everything that was taken from your divine inheritance, along with any accrued interest computed at divine rates that account for both material and immaterial harms, will be returned by the cosmic machinery you set in action by your painstaking spiritual research. Every transaction that your investigative work identifies as stolen is processed by the universal banking system. In order to return tangible items to their proper owner, cosmic transportation mechanisms come into play. Spiritual evidence that can no longer be contained in ethereal realms causes reality to bend. This is something you have to figure out on your own. Through keys that your research tracked through several transactions, you regain control of your stolen home. Through stories of your investigative effort that are revealed through intricate concealment, your inheritance is passed back to your guardianship. Through resources your investigation recovered from unauthorized users, your prosperity is restored to your experience. When your actual social status is proven beyond dispute through documented evidence, the exclusive clubs that denied you membership despite your clear qualifications suddenly issue invitations. Now that fund managers are aware of your genuine financial ability, the exclusive investment possibilities that were inexplicably unavailable when you showed interest are actively seeking your involvement. The universities who turned down your applications in spite of your outstanding qualifications are now offering honorary recognition and retroactive admission as your true academic accomplishments emerge from censored records. Your valid qualifications were not recognized by the professional organizations who rejected your membership applications due to administrative faults. Before the evidence of your investigation is gathered, your adversaries flee. The last laugh belongs to you, the detective who, when all the odds were against your inquiry, solved the biggest inheritance heist in cosmic history, despite their concerted meddling. By making connections between disparate dimensions, your investigative activity increased the strain on the universal justice system beyond what physical reality could bear or postpone. As your inquiry reveals the intellectual property theft, the patents that were filed utilizing your study without permission return to you. Royalties are now coming straight to your accounts from the books that were published using your ideas without giving you credit. The technologies created from your inventions start to generate licensing fees that recognize your legitimate profit share as soon as the plagiarism is legally proven. It's not just a personal restoration. The paradigm is changing. In the universal record, you have set a new standard by solving this cosmic crime. Future generations of spiritual investigators will examine your strategies, your perseverance, and your eventual victory over forces that believed they were unaccountable. In the history of cosmic justice, your case will go down in legend. When your actual coverage levels are restored, the medical procedures that were refused due to insurance trickery suddenly become accessible. As your actual financial situation comes to light through concealment, the experimental therapies that were deemed too costly for your financial situation now seem affordable. Through clauses in insurance policies you were unaware existed, you can access the specialized care that was diverted to others while you suffered. The luminous creatures entrusted to help you with your investigation are guided by your spirit, but they do not solve it for you. I have greatly admired your detective abilities and have worked alongside your efforts. They have maintained active crime scenes and preserved evidence that others attempted to destroy by quantum interventions. Others tried to use frequency disruptors to purify the air and directed your intuition toward important findings without taking control of your free choice. As your investigative work exposes their involvement in the wealth diversion scam, the charitable foundations that stated they had not enough money to help your deserving initiatives suddenly find large resources. As selection committees see the dishonesty of earlier evaluation procedures, the scholarships that were rejected despite your flawless qualifications become available. The startling reality that confronted you at the start of this discovery has now changed from a covert plot to an overt triumph. Thanks to your own extraordinary detective skills, the evil forces that were circling your life have been discovered and vanquished. With the keys you found via spiritual research, those closed doors suddenly swing open. The case that resulted in your full restoration now uses those betrayals as evidence. When hiring managers learn that your excellent qualifications were previously repressed by coordinated interference, the career chances that were consistently prevented now vie for your attention. When review committees find evidence of discriminatory tactics intended to impede your career, the promotions that were denied despite your exceptional performance suddenly become available. When your abundance returns with cosmic interest, the financial difficulties that formerly appeared like a horrible fate are exposed as artificial limitations put in place to stop your study. Every obstacle that was intended to prevent you from receiving your inheritance has completely backfired, acting as proof that you won. As lending institutions admit their role in the systematic exclusion intended to prevent you from obtaining properties that improve your investigative skills, the housing applications that were inexplicably denied while having impeccable credit and income proof are now approved. Geographical barriers melt under the pressure of your study, opening to neighborhoods that were inaccessible for all time. The enormous legacy that was always yours is now fully exposed by the matrix that was beginning to break open at the beginning of your awakening. When your detective skills were first ignited, the shadow agents fled in fear, but now they must face cosmic punishment and complete exposure. When you give with joy, heaven records it. Your seed in holy voices is eternal, Philippians 4 verse 17. The global download of truth that started with your initial mistrust is now complete, changing not only your perception but your whole world. As regulatory bodies recognize the invalidity of earlier rejections, business permits that were rejected through bureaucratic trickery suddenly process without delay. As credentialing organizations acknowledge their role in the systematic suppression of your qualifications, the professional certifications that were denied even though you fulfilled all standards become available. With fund managers admitting to the deception that hid your profits, the investment accounts that displayed fictitious losses despite market gains now accurately reflect their performance. When the fraudulent withdrawals are stopped by the legal procedures your inquiry triggered, the retirement funds that were exhausted by illegal activities are restored. Now, you are a living example of what may happen when someone with your investigation skills rejects the idea that manufactured reality is real. The investigative DNA that came into play when your fate was most threatened has brought about total triumph over powers that thought they were unaccountable. Your uncanny perseverance that was unbreakable by. Your mythology has been formed in several planes of reality by spiritual battle of any kind. As service providers recognize the systematic interference that was used against your mobility, the transportation systems that inexplicably broke down when you needed to get to crucial appointments now perform flawlessly. As telecommunications firms recover your priority access levels, the communication networks that suffer convenient disruptions during important discussions now remain perfectly connected. Justice has been done, the offenders have been found, the evidence has been compiled, and the cosmic crime scene has been processed. Your inheritance is returned as properly recovered property determined by a valid spiritual investigation, not as divine charity. Your authority is reinstated as verified credentials that were demonstrated by detective effort that resolved the unsolvable case, not as a consolation award. The world changes to fit your successful investigation. The cosmic mainframe downloads all of the data packets of your study into material experience as evidence turns into physical restoration more frequently and intensely, turning spiritual proof into actual recuperation that cannot be undone or postponed. Furthermore, as academic institutions recognize the invalidity of earlier exclusions, educational possibilities that were barred by administrative manipulation are now actively seeking your participation. Instead of benefiting the people who stole from you, the research funds that were taken from your legitimate initiatives are used to sponsor studies that further your objective. The master detective who started this adventure with the feeling that something was seriously amiss now orders the full return of everything that was taken, together with interest and damages, and the satisfaction that comes from knowing that your brilliant investigator cracked the code they believed was unbreakable. Because some souls have the superhuman investigative talents to find cosmic thieves, they cannot be permanently robbed, and your victory reverberates beyond realms where similar crimes are attempted. As your genuine social standing is confirmed by facts, the social networks that once barred you from powerful circles now offer invitations. As they admit their role in the systematic repression of your creative production, the cultural institutions that rejected your contributions now recognize your work. Greetings from your domain, Detective Master. The cosmos itself recognizes your superior investigative skills, the case is closed, and the inheritance is returned. The riddle wasn't merely solved by you. Through detective work that will be studied for spiritual centuries to come, you rewrote the rules of cosmic justice. The startling reality that once threatened to overwhelm you is now the cornerstone of your absolute triumph. Beyond personal healing, the legacy you created with your detective success sets a cosmic precedent that shields future chosen ones from similar stolen efforts. When handling inheritance theft cases in all facets of reality, universal legal systems will use your investigative methods as the standard protocol. Beloved soul, if this message has spoken to your heart, don't let it end here. Click that like button so the light can spread to more people who need hope. Subscribe to Holy Voices so you never miss the next word heaven has for you. And leave a comment below. I read every one, and I pray over them. Remember, faith grows when we share it, so share this message with someone who needs to hear it today. Until we meet again, may God's peace cover you and His voice guide your every step.